Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I'm so glad you're joining me here today on my YouTube channel. I'm going to be sharing with you how I made this Positive Mermaid Vibes card, as well as my first impressions of the Tim Holtz glass media mat. Let's get started. I purchased the glass media mat in the travel size. I did that because I knew that I did not want to keep it on my desktop permanently, and the travel size is the perfect size for me to pull out and add to my desktop when I'm ready to use it, and then put it away when I'm not. The travel size comes with this neoprene sleeve that protects the glass media mat when you travel with it. The glass is tempered glass, which makes it heat resistant and scratch resistant. It's not scratch proof, but it is scratch resistant. The glass media mat comes in a right and left-handed version, which I have the right-handed version. And on the right is the mixing palette area. So you can mix inks, you can lay down distress inks or oxide inks and use your water brushes to take those mediums to your papers. It also comes with a removable nonstick mat that you can use, or you can take it off and put it on the back. That also allows for easy cleanup after you have finished creating and making your projects. So let's give this media mat a try. So I'm going to be creating this Positive Mermaid Vibes card in 3 parts. And so I'm going to start off with making the background. And the background is going to be an ink blended background using this sun stencil from Hero Arts. So I'm going in first here with some squeezed lemonade distress oxide ink. And I'm going to lay that down and put I'm not going to use the entire stencil. I'm not going to cover the entire panel here, which, by the way, I'm using Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock in 80 pound. But I'm not going to cover the entire panel because the bottom portion of the panel is going to be covered up by a third layer of the card. So I'm going to follow up that squeezed lemonade with fossilized amber distress oxide ink. And as I get ready to pull back the stencil, we're going to see just how beautiful of a background these 2 distress oxide inks have come together and created. So here's the initial reveal of the background. And I like what I see so far, but I do feel like the white is just a tiny bit too stark for what I'm going for. So I decided to go in with some squeezed lemonade and just tone down the white portions of the background. And I really like the way this came together. I think that was the right move for this card. By the way, you may notice that my ink blending brush has a silver piece of washi tape on the back of it. That is to let me know that these blending brushes are to be used with my distress oxide inks, since those inks have are contained in a silver container, silver base. So there we have the toned down and completed background panel. So now what I'm going to show you is the cleanup of the glass media mat. You can use several different things to clean the glass media mat and to remove your mediums that you place down. I'm going to be using some Mrs. Meyer's multi-purpose cleaner and a microfiber cloth. And so as you can see, the Mrs. Meyer's cleaner cleans the media mat very nicely. The only thing is the microfiber cloth, does not absorb all the liquid, so I'm just going to follow that up with a paper towel just to make sure that it is the media mat is completely dry before I move on to the next part of my creating this card. So now I'm going to be bringing in a second panel, and on the second panel I'm going to be doing some ink blending as well. This time I'm going to try out the domed foam ink blending applicators from scrapbook.com. And I recently purchased these and had not ever used them. And what intrigued me about them is that their edges are domed. So there's no like harsh or rough edge to catch the edge of your papers. So I'm going in here with some spun sugar distress oxide ink, and I'm laying down an initial layer of that. And I must tell you that the foam that is used for these foam applicators is different than the other foams, any other foams that I've ever tried. But I do like the way that they blend. Just because they're different doesn't make them any better or any worse. I do like the way that they blend, and they seem to work pretty well with my Distress Oxide inks. I'll have to give them a try one day with my regular Distress inks and my other kinds of inks that I have to see how well they work with those. But so far, I'm liking the way they work with the Distress Oxides. So I've come in with 2 more colors. I've used Pick Raspberry and Wilted Violet to just kind of create a ombre effect down this panel. And so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be using this for stamping of the mermaid tails. And so again, because I'm not using a whole panel, I don't need to completely cover the entire panel with ink. I'm just covering the portion of the panel that I'm actually going to be using, that I feel like that would make sure I have enough space for the stamps of the mermaid's tails. So I'm going in here, back in, just to try to get a better blend. So now I'm going to be moving on to my third layer of this card. And this is going to be an ocean. So I'm moving back to my blending brushes, and I'm going to be using a couple of different oxide inks for this piece as well. Because I'm going to be using a 6x6 stamp on this card, but again, I'm not using the entire panel, I decide to start in the middle, and then I'm going to, with my lighter color, I think that was Peacock Feather, and then I'm going to come in behind the Peacock Feather with some Salty Ocean. And you can see there how I'm picking up some of the color from my glass media mat, but I'm also to blend into my card. And I really, really like the way I'm able to grab some of that color off of the mat or some new color and be able to get a really nice blend. There we go. I did remember to show you the colors, Salty Ocean and Peacock Feathers. So I got a nice blend on those two, and now I'm ready to move on with the creation and stamping. Now that I've done all of my ink blending, and I've also off camera hit them with my heat tool to dry them really quickly to make sure that my stamping could be done, it's time to come in with my stamp set. This is the Be a Mermaid stamp and die set from Simon Says Stamp. This was part of one of their summer releases. I believe it is still available. So you can head over to simonsaystamp.com and pick up this stamp set if you want to get it. It is a beautiful stamp set. It is quite versatile. I've used it quite a few times. So I really, really am enjoying having this stamp set, and I'm glad that I made this purchase. So now I'm laying down my mermaid tail, and there are 2 different mermaid tails in this stamp set. One is one is longer than the other one, but they both work well together. I'm going to come in with some clear Versamark ink. It's a clear sticky ink, because what I want to do is I want to heat emboss this image with some white embossing powder. So I'm going to come in and stamp the image with this clear Versamark ink. And then I'm going to, once I'm done with that, I'm going to be able to cover my inked image with the white embossing powder and be able to hit that with the heat tool and create a outline of the mermaid's tails. Because I am doing this twice, because I am using embossing powder, my goodness, I do want to come in and make sure that I ink the image twice just to make sure there's no missing parts, because the scales on the mermaid's tail are pretty detailed. So I just want to make sure that I get a complete image. So then I just covered the image with the white embossing powder. Now I'm hitting the image with my heat tool. And one of the things, another advantage to having the glass medium matte is that it's heat resistant. The matte that I have below my medium matte, I love it. I love it to death. It's magnetized and it's really a great matte, but it is not heat resistant. Where I've used the my heat tool on it, it has warped a little bit. I'm glad that I now have the glass medium matte, because that won't happen with the glass medium matte, and I can make sure I can hold my paper against the glass medium matte, heat my embossing powders, and never have to worry about the medium matte warping. So I took the the dies, and I placed them on my stamped images and cut those out, and there you have the two mermaid's tails. I flipped them on the inked background, the ink blended background, and so you can see there that I get a light to dark ombre effect on one, and then a dark to light ombre effect on another tail. So now that I've finished the tails, it's time to come in and create our ocean. So I'm using the Ocean Waves background stamp by Hero Arts. This is a 6x6 stamp that is very detailed. It has some very thin lines on this stamp. And so that makes it, you really want to take your time with this stamp. A trick that I learned by watching the Queen, Jennifer McGuire, is to go ahead and put down your stamp, close your Misty door, which, by the way, this is the Misty 2.0, and then to place your panel on top of your stamp where you want it. Again, because I did not ink the entire background, I'm not placing the panel like directly over the stamp. I am placing it a little bit above so that I only stamp the area that is inked. I put a piece of washi tape on the back of my panel and close the door, and now my panel is stuck to the inside of my Misty. So I'm going to hit the cover the stamp with some Versamark ink as well, because I am going to be heat embossing this background stamp with some white embossing powder as well. So I'm going to, and because again, this is a very detailed stamp, those lines for the ocean are very thin. I want to make sure I hit the image twice with the ink and close it, just to make sure that I get as great of an impression as I possibly can. So I'm bringing in my white embossing powder, and I'm going to cover my image with the embossing powder, and you can see I have a great coverage of my image with that Versamark ink and the embossing powder. So I'm bringing in my heat tool again, and I'm going to heat that embossing powder till it melts. Now it's assembly time. So I don't want the entire image that I stamped and heat embossed for the ocean. And this stamp naturally has some waves in it, so I'm going to cut along one of those waves and use that to my advantage to for the placement of my stamps. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel that I'm going to be that I'm creating on. So it's a typical A2 size card. I decided that I wanted a little bit of glitz and glam on the mermaid tails. So I have brought in my Spectrum Noir Sparkle pen in clear, and so I'm adding some sparkle to my mermaid tails. One of the things that you want to be careful about when you do something like this is, because the Distress oxide inks react to liquid. You want to be careful how much time you spend applying something that's wet to the to the Distress Oxide ink, because what you're also simultaneously doing is reactivating that ink. So just give it a pass or two in each area, and that should take care of it, so that you can add your sparkle, but also not like ruin your ombre effect that you've gotten here on from your ink blending. So I've completed that, and now it's time for assembly. Testing it out, make sure it's dry. So I'm going to be popping up the mermaid tails as well as the ocean layer of the card. And what I'm using here is some foam tape that I purchased at Dollar Tree. I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but I don't know if you've been to Dollar Tree lately, but they really have stepped up their craft area. And so I bought one package of this foam tape from Dollar Tree, and I am pleased to say that I am impressed with how well it works. One of the other advantages to having the foam tape, getting the foam tape from Dollar Tree, is that in one package, there are 3 different sizes of foam tape. So there's like a thin, a medium, and then a wide version of the foam tape. So I've used the wider version, the widest version of the foam tape on my mermaid's tail. So I'm peeling off the backer here, and I'm getting ready to lay those on the card. I want to make sure that they are, the edges of the fins fit within the panel of the card, because again, this is an A2 size card, and I don't want anything sticking out, otherwise it won't fit in the envelope. So I'm peeling off the backer on the second mermaid tail, and I'm going to add that to the card as well. Now it's time to add our ocean scene. So I originally was going to place the foam tape on the ocean panel, but I decided to put it on the card. That way I don't mistakenly overlap with the mermaid's tails. Add a little bit more tape. Taking the backer paper off, and we're going to put the ocean panel on the card. When I was measuring the panel, I realized that where I wanted to put the ocean panel, a portion of that foam tape was going to show, so I took that back off. I trimmed down the ocean panel so that everything it's fitting perfectly, and the card panel was just about complete. Within that stamp set of the mermaid's tail, there's a sentiment that says Positive Mermaid Vibes. So I stamped that off camera and added some foam to that, and now I'm adding that to the back. I'm sorry, to the bottom of our card. I wanted to use liquid adhesive on this sentiment because that panel with the ocean is not flat. It is, dimensional. And so I felt like the liquid adhesive would get into all the nooks and crannies of the ocean, heat embossed ocean image, and make for a great adherence of the sentiment. Last step is to add the panel to an A2 card base. So I'm using my ATG gun to add some tape runner to the card to adhere the panel to the card. And because I did not cut this panel down because it's exactly 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, it's going to there's not going to be no border around. It's going to match up exactly to the card. So I'm going to stand it up and make sure that I get everything lined up, and then press the panel in place. And now this card is complete. I hope you have enjoyed watching me make this Positive Mermaid Vibes card, as well as giving you my opinions and review of the Glass Medium Mat by Tim Holtz and Tonic Studios. If you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel, as well as if you'd like to know when I post new videos, make sure you hit the notification bell. For more details on this project, as well as the others I create, make sure you check out my blog at www.thedeltacrafter.com. Thanks for stopping by today, and I'll see you next time. Enjoy!